As the sun rose over the vast plains of Babylon, a massive golden statue stood towering above the land, shining brilliantly beneath the harsh light of the desert sky. King Nebuchadnezzar, ruler of the greatest empire of his time, had commanded the image to be built as a symbol of his power and glory. Officials, nobles, soldiers, musicians, and people from every nation gathered before the enormous monument. The plain was filled with thousands of people as banners moved in the wind and the sound of instruments echoed across the land. Then the royal command was proclaimed for all to hear. When the music began to play, every person was to bow before the golden image. Anyone who refused would immediately be thrown into a blazing, fiery furnace. Soon the horns, drums, harps, and flutes sounded together, and the entire crowd fell to the ground in worship before the statue. But among the countless people bowing in fear and obedience, 3 men remained standing. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood calmly together while everyone around them knelt before the image. They refused to bow because their faithfulness to God was greater than their fear of punishment. Their actions were quickly noticed. The king was furious. The 3 men were brought before his throne while the entire plain watched in silence. Nebuchadnezzar gave them one final chance. He warned them that when the music played again, they must bow before the golden statue or be thrown into the furnace. But the 3 men answered with courage and peace. They declared that their God was able to save them from the fire, but even if he did not, they would never worship the golden image. Their faith only increased the king's rage. Soldiers bound Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego tightly with ropes and led them toward the roaring furnace. Smoke rolled across the ground while sparks flew into the air. The crowd watched in fear as the 3 men were pushed toward the blazing fire. Then, before the eyes of the entire nation, they were thrown into the furnace. Flames burst violently outward as they disappeared into the fire. But moments later, something impossible happened. King Nebuchadnezzar suddenly rose from his throne in shock. He stared into the furnace with disbelief. The 3 men were not destroyed. Their ropes had burned away, but they themselves were unharmed, walking peacefully within the flames. And there was another figure with them in the fire, a 4th presence moving calmly beside them. The furnace still roared with terrifying heat, yet the fire could not touch them. The king and all the people stood frozen in amazement. Nebuchadnezzar moved closer to the furnace and called out for the men to come out. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped from the flames completely unharmed. Their robes were untouched, their hair was not burned, and not even the smell of smoke remained upon them. The same furnace that was meant to destroy them had no power over them at all. Fear and awe spread throughout Babylon as everyone witnessed the miracle. The king himself publicly honored the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, declaring that no other God could save in such a way. The 3 men who had once stood alone before the entire kingdom were now honored throughout the empire because of their faithfulness. As evening settled over Babylon, the furnace slowly burned low beneath the darkening sky. The giant golden statue still stood upon the plain, but it no longer seemed powerful compared to the miracle the people had witnessed. The story of the fiery furnace spread across the land, reminding everyone that true faith does not bow to fear, and that even in the midst of the fire, God is able to protect those who trust in Him.
Subscribe for more Bible Mysteries Explained.